This is part 2 of our Easter special here. And for those of you that are late or just now showing up, and we're covering the science behind the actual crucifixion and how would a man or anyone actually, what would they be going through during being nailed to anything, and exactly how would this actually work. Well, I'm going to talk about the mental state of what a person would go through. People have pain thresholds. Everybody is different. Typically, women have a higher pain threshold than men.
Yep.
A good example of that is I watched my mom give birth to my brother, and the pain that she suffered reminded me only a few things that I've gone through personally. But the weirdest part of it is when it's over, for some reason, a person does not remember exactly how bad it was. They remember the events, they remember the things that happened, but when you get to a certain level of pain threshold, it's not pain, it could be pleasure, or you just don't have a memory. Your memory lapses. So what happens when someone is being nailed to a tree and stabbed and different things, and you get to your final threshold? We're talking about pain to the level where you will actually pass out or die. If you've not experienced to that level, then you haven't experienced your pain threshold. A pain threshold is when your body completely shuts down and either puts you in a coma or it kills you. That's your pain threshold. What happens is you start hearing high-pitched noises. Your vision gets blurred. People's voices are starting to echo. Your breathing either gets faster or slower depending on who you are. And you can have these moments where you start thinking about all the different things. So while Jesus is on the cross, he's probably having a, as we humans call it, a last moment scenario where you relive your whole life in a flash, in the blink of an eye. He probably hears the people when he was a kid, make fun of someone in class. He remembers going to teach the Pharisees. He probably remembers the woman at the well, the stonings, the ridicules, the people screaming. Everything that's ever happened to him, he remembers. He remembers probably, Satan tempting him in the desert. He remembers Peter denying him 3 times. And anything else in between goes on in his mind. And as one of my friends who is listening right now let me read a play that they wrote, the most significant thing that we as humans must realize is each time the cat o' nine tails, and a cat o' nine tails is kind of equivalent to what is something called as a flogger. It's small strips of leather that can be laced with glass, rocks, sand, metals, and there are 9 strips that are all combined into one larger strip at the end. And depending on what type of cat o' nine tail it is, let's say for instance my hand's the cat o' nine tail, it will have the 5 and then the 1. And depending on what happens, either you just get hit by the 5 or you get hit by the 5 and the 1. And typically 40 lashes is what it took to kill somebody. Current example is in Thailand. They cane people. This cane is probably anywhere from 4 to 10 feet, anywhere between 2 to 6 to 8 inches in diameter. And to imagine this, go look at your car, look at the hood of your car, and imagine your car hood getting hit only once, and the whole top of the hood completely caves in, and all the cracks are, it's almost broke. So that's exactly what Jesus went through as he was getting hit by these this cat of nine tails, it would hit and they would drag it down. So, and remember I just described that there would be glass or wood or something. So the leather wasn't the really extremest bad part, although that would break the skin. It was the fact that after the skin was broken, these particles that were in each one of these 9 strips would be dragged across the skin to cause even more in-depth damage. The amount of damage that Jesus went through probably revealed majority of his back rib cage. How long will that take? It depends on how hard and fast that they hit him. A cat of nine tails can bring damage to the bone by the second or even third hit at earliest, depending on how strong a person is. Now, of course, these people were trained for execution. It's kind of like current day scenarios where, you know, you have an executioner, or even I can even describe it as boxing. You know, you have someone trained to get in shape, and they're in shape to do this, and this is what they're trained to do, so they're going to know all the ins and outs of how to cause more pain and damage. You know, when the bone made contact into Jesus' skin, it digs into the muscles, it tears out flesh, and exposes the bone even deeper. And it causes your blood pressure to fall, it causes you to have, you know, all these imbalances and all sorts of different things. The crown of thorns, I would say the crown of thorns might have been the least possible painful thing. Some people say it was like a briar patch type of thorn that was set out purposefully to dry. Some say it's a mixture of rose. You know, people talk about the Rose of Sharon, and you see the picture of like the barbed wire wrapped around a heart or something like that. Now, I would think that the person putting this on would have to be wearing some form of glove, or maybe the whole thing wasn't completely covered where the guy could actually hold it. But if anyone's ever got stuck in a briar patch or fell into a rose bush, especially a dead rose bush, that's pretty sharp. And to push that into your head, it's going to cause a lot of pain. It'll pierce the skin. And the pain after that point is not the thorns on his head. It's the fact that he's sweating, and the sweat, you know, increases the salt content. And as the salt starts to seep into the wounds across his body himself is causing more pain than what may be even being inflicted upon him. You know, you keep hearing someone talk bad, and all the ridicule and everything and stuff. They say crucifixion was invented by Persians between 300 and 400 BC. They say it's the most painful death ever invented by mankind. I mean, you talk about a torture rack, you talk about, you know, hangings and all this other stuff. They say the crucifixion is probably the worst thing possible. Some people say that it wasn't technically a Latin cross, but maybe a tau cross, because the vertical piece, the stipes, remain in the ground permanently, and the accused one has to carry his cross up to where he's at, you know. And we know that Jesus carried his own cross on up to where he was actually going, and to the direction of where he actually was. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to talk about more of the history of what the cross is and where it came from.